Hi everyone, this week we are finishing off the watermill video. See you after this. Hi everybody and welcome to this week's video, or this month's video. Hope you had a great Christmas and New Year. We're back with the second part of the watermill building. Now, it's changed slightly. I haven't used some of the bits that I was going to use, so it's ended up being a little bit of a quicker video than I planned, but I will go into that in a little bit of detail in a minute, and I'll show you why I kind of changed things. But the building is finished, as far as it's going to be finished for now. There are still a few bits that I need to put in, like the actual water wheel, but I'll do that when I finish off the board itself, so that it's kind of in the right place for the resin pour for the canal and things like that. But before we go into the video, what I wanted to do is just do a bit of information about kind of where I work at the minute and the kind of space I'm working in and what I'm doing in the background, and how that's hopefully going to change for the better, the kind of content that I can produce and how quickly I can produce it, and just give me a little bit of freedom. So at the moment, I work in this space, and this is where I do all of my work. So it's where I write, it is where I build models, it's where I build the baseboards, but it's a little bit small. So as you can see, this is where I do all of my writing. Nice, tidy for me. I can sit there and I can write. However, if we turn around, this is also where I build and model and do all of that kind of stuff and paint. This is not so great. This is a bit small. Now, it's great for painting miniatures, it's great for doing things like the houses and things like that, but if I try and fit a board on there, I've got no chance. And as you can see, the leg space underneath is being filled by all of the Mordheim boards at the minute. The room itself is just filled with kind of paints and everything else that I need, wooden bits and just all the bits and pieces. It's not ideal. So I've built somewhere new. Behind me is the new building. This will hopefully give me a lot more space, and it will give me a lot of space for storage, for the fighting writing stuff, but it will just make things so much easier. So hopefully you can see that the new space is going to give me a lot more scope to build boards in comfort, so I'm not going to kind of move them between the house and the study. I'm not going to get everything like plaster and all of that kind of stuff all over this stuff that I use for work, for writing. It should mean that I can build things a little bit quicker without having to move everything around. It should mean that I can build things a little bit bigger as well. So that's kind of what's coming up probably over the next couple of months. It's going to be finished, so hopefully the kind of content will improve as well. It will just be the top-down views from this camera that you can see up behind me. I am trying to experiment a little bit more with getting more camera angles, but as you can see, there's just not enough space to put a tripod, to put proper lights and things like that, but there will be that space in the new outbuilding. Plus it will have so much storage. The problem with fighting writing at the minute is that all of the battle boards and all of the minis and all of the terrain take up so much space, and at the minute they're all crammed into my wardrobe or crammed into the attic. Having this outbuilding is just going to give so much more storage space in there for all of that kind of stuff, so I can build more stuff as well. So with that in mind, let's go on to the video. Like I said, it's a bit shorter than I intended. I'll see you on the other side. One of my original ideas for this building was to have the cog that's in there drive or look like it's driving another wheel. So I even built one here. This hasn't been finished, I haven't finished painting it. This was just a basic model because I decided actually my idea was to put that somewhere about there, but raised up. It's right in the doorway. It's a ridiculous placement. My other idea with that was then to have kind of a grindstone that was going to be hanging from chains through a hole in the ground on top of it. The idea being that this would have turned from that and ground everything. And I just realised with everything in there, it would take away half the playing space for the building. So I decided to drop it. Okay, I just decided, you know what, let's lose it. Let's leave it as it is on the ground floor, and it's just much more playable. It's not quite what I wanted when I set out, but it is much more playable than anything else would have been. So to begin with, I did this before we finished the first build video really. So I started to use some garden jute twine, I think it is, just with Mod Podge, and then I went over it with black contrast paint or watered down acrylic paint just to give it that really dark creeping vine vibe. The first part of this building that I had to build was the struts for the floor. I knew I needed to build the second floor. I always struggle with this kind of thing, like where would the beams go, how would it all work? For this one I decided to put a beam across the centre like that so that I could put perpendicular beams back across there to put the flooring on, because I didn't want to put the floor in going front to back. I wanted it to go left to right. And this just seemed to be the most logical way for me to do. I don't think it wouldn't be building structurally sound, maybe. It's probably not the architectural way to do it, but it gave a really good base for the floor. It looks nice, it looks good when it's finished, it's playable, it gives the impression. Off camera, because apparently I lost all the footage, I cut out a load of coffee stirrers and just stuck those on, the same as I did with the floor on the bottom. Exactly the same process, cut them out and stuck them on. I just wanted to stick a few planks down in the middle of the floor to give it that kind of scattered look, to give it the abandoned look. Painted the whole thing in brown acrylic paint, just the cheapest brown acrylic paint. I think this was burnt umber or some sort of umber, or maybe even just brown. And then went over the whole thing with some various different inks, mainly black, a bit of brown in there as well, some caramel, just to kind of darken up the edges, give it that almost vignette around the edge, but mainly just to give it a real horrible, dirty grime look, and to reach the places that annoyingly I couldn't reach with the acrylic paint underneath. This was a really good kind of cheap way of just spraying underneath to give it that really dark black, there you go, dark black shadowy look, where I couldn't quite reach with the brush. Like I said, I did a mix of blacks and browns. I think I might have used a bit of green ink in there as well. The problem I'm finding mainly with the inks is they do clog up the airbrush really quickly, so I need to find a fix for that. I might have to thin them a little bit, which seems a bit stupid with inks really, but I might have to give them a bit of a thin. But what this also did was it allowed me to tie in the wooden first floorboards with the rest of the building. So I went around and put a bit more black ink over kind of the other areas, the posters, the seams, the bricks, the bits where the new wood joined the old walls, and that just tied it all in nicely. The same as on some of the other buildings, I cut out the walls using the XPS foam, the grey XPS. I think this was 6mm, 6mm thick. Just cut it out to fit. I think by this point, I think I've pulled or torn some of the ligaments in my middle finger on my left hand, and everything was really painful at this point. Trying to hold the building, trying to cut and hold everything else was just really hurting. And I just wanted to get the building finished, so I thought, I'm not going to do some massively complicated walls. If I put these half crumbled down walls, then I don't have to do a roof. I think there was a lot of that feeling going into this at this point. I just wanted something that would be good, would be playable. When I was doing this, I'd got a fighting writing workshop in a school the next day, which I wanted to try and take these to, even though I've not finished the board that they're going to go on. I wanted to use them on some of the other boards that I've got, and I just wanted to get it to a finish point whilst dealing with the pain of my finger. You don't realise how much you use your middle finger for crafting until you can't really use it very much. So this was the same techniques as the first house that I built, really, just kind of cutting out the walls. I cut out a section here for a window frame, or a broken window frame, that I wanted to add in, just to give it that impression that maybe there was a window there before. I knew I wanted to put almost like a scaffolding platform outside. This hangs over the pathway anyway, but I wanted a little bit extra that will probably hang over the canal as well, so it had been added on afterwards. So that broken window will give them a nice way of getting out. And I put a few mending planks across it as well, it gives a bit more structural support to that loose window frame beam on the left. And then I wanted to build the scaffold platform. Again, I lost a little bit of footage here off my phone of building the frame, but it's just the wooden, I think it's 4mm sticks stuck together, and then coffee stirrers again on top, just to give it that. I wanted this to be more ramshackle, so this wasn't part of the building. this is something that somebody's added after the fact, either a scaffolding to help repair it maybe in front of it or something like that, or maybe just a balcony that they'd stuck on to go and stand out on. This was to give some verticality to the playing as much as anything. One of the inspirations for this board is the Games Workshop game Mordheim, and that is set in kind of a pseudo Middle Ages. There's black powder weapons, it's perhaps a bit later than that. And I really like that aesthetic, and I really wanted to do something similar with this, but I realised as I was building this, actually I want to make it my own. I want my own time frame. And I know the idea of corrugated metal, it kind of brings that kind of cyberpunk futuristic element with it, but actually I was having a look, doing a little bit of research, and sheet metal started to be used in kind of the 1600s. Yes, it wasn't corrugated, but kind of sheet iron or sheet tin, kind of early 1600s, kind of late Tudor period. And so I thought, you know what, within the timeline of my world, I think I can have odd bits of metal. I don't think it would have been everywhere. It would have still been expensive, but it might have been used for some form of repairs. It might have been used for some small roofing. So it's quite a big decision. It was quite a big decision, weirdly, to include it in this build. But I thought it opens up a lot more scope for future builds. So things like having fancy ornate wrought iron railings around the cemetery when we get to that. It just kind of adds a little bit more, you know, to it. We could kind of almost creep into a steampunk kind of area of having, maybe there's a mad scientist laboratory somewhere with lightning rods and all of that kind of stuff. It's a weird timeline. It doesn't have to fit anywhere exactly in human history as we know it. There won't be kind of, you know, automatic weapons and things like that. There might be black powder guns with some of the characters, a bit like in Mordheim, like kind of like muskets and things like that. So that was quite a big decision to make, whether or not I included it. So yeah, I'd be interested in people's thoughts in the comments on that, just to see what people think. On with the rest of the video. So with that in mind, out came the corrugated cardboard. This works brilliantly for corrugated metal, whether you're doing something like this or a really futuristic build. It's dead cheap, works really easily, just super glued it down. And one thing I would say is you do need to cover it with Mod Podge or something like that, or PVA glue, to give it a lot more strength so it doesn't start to peel up. I did that when I was painting it. I mixed the brown paint with some Mod Podge, same as I've done black paint with Mod Podge in the past. It kind of did two jobs. It seals the cardboard and it paints the wood at the same time as well. I stuck it on first because I wanted to see it in place. So again, it's not part of the build in this, it's just something that I wanted it to look like something that had been tacked on afterwards, either by the kind of people left in this city or, you know, maybe when it was still built. Some rudimentary struts again that I think people might have just stuck to the building or hammered into the building to kind of hold it up. Whoever's added this platform has just wanted it up quick and dirty. They didn't want to spend too much time building it. A bit like me at this point. Again, this was trying to get it done in time for the workshop, and also with my finger. So got all of that stuck in. I'm pleased with how it came out in the end, to be fair. Tested it for scale, checked with my little wizard. And then this is brown paint. I did mix a bit of Mod Podge in there as well for the when I got to doing the corrugated cardboard. I went back over that afterwards with some brown Mod Podge. Painted all of the woodwork, all of the new woodwork anyway that I've added here, just to give it that base brown coat. Had to stick some of the bits back on that came a bit loose. Then I tried to use my airbrush to paint all of the plaster, give it a nice light grey coat. The airbrush was playing up, couldn't get anything to come out. I think the ink that I had used with the black kind of clogged it up, so I had to take that away and give it a good clean. Came back and worked through all the grey, and then went over with a bright green ink, which was a lot brighter than I intended. I didn't realise how bright it would be, but actually once I dull it down later with some black ink over the top and some brown ink to tie it all in, it looks really good. I'm really pleased with how it looks. Just gives a pop of colour. I think this was quite an important build in this watermill. or kind of flour mill was an important building in it, so it would have perhaps had a bit of colour on it. I just like the way it looked, to be honest, as much as anything else. And then it was just a case of stippling the corrugated metal with some silver, some browns, some oranges to give it a rusty kind of appearance as well. And once that was done, it was ready. And I was ready to take it into a school for the fighting writing. One of the things I was really looking forward to seeing when I took these buildings into the school, and I kind of took first house that we built, took the new one, and I took in the two bridge sections for the watchtower. I didn't take in the middle bit because that's kind of specially designed to go in the water. And one of the things that I was really interested to see was how the children interacted with the verticality of them having the heights. Now, I know from using the arena that they like to take the characters up high, and this was really, really interesting. Seeing the way that they played with the figures, with the buildings. It wasn't just a case of, oh, there's a second floor there, let's get the characters up. The narrative that the children came up with when they were playing with them. Some of them were taking on the role of a spy. They were climbing up in these buildings so they could see what their opponents were doing in the narrative. Some of them were going up there so they could leap across from building to building. They really started to explore it. So it's given me confidence that actually what I want to do going forward with this is build more of these kind of taller buildings. I would love to do, as part of this build, maybe on one of the other boards, a big, almost steampunk style wizard's tower. Maybe 3 or 4 floors, the big mansion when we get to that, the kind of mayor's house on one of the final boards. I want to go big. I want that to be, multiple rooms, being able to go up onto the roof. One of them I'd like to do as though it was a building under construction, so it's just surrounded by scaffold. I think I'm a little bit bored of doing buildings that are broken open like these. I think I've kind of hit my limit with that for now. So I think the next few buildings that I do for this, I might do closed buildings, but have other ways to get that. I want to test myself, I want to challenge myself with the buildings. So instead of having just open plan buildings like these where the walls have been crumbled down, I want to do something where maybe the building structure itself is intact, but there are other things that have been added for the characters to climb on. So it might be, like I say, some scaffold. I might use some very small bamboo or something like that to kind of make a bamboo scaffold structure around it, maybe an old church. So that there's still that ability to climb on it and play around it, but we don't have to keep going inside and doing all of that kind of stuff. I hope you enjoyed this one. I know it's shorter than what I was planning. I was planning to do something much more involved with the wheel and the grindstone. I've even bought loads of different little chains to do that with. It just didn't work. When I tried to do it with the space available in there, it just I would have been doing it for the sake of doing it rather than for what would be best for the playability. I will do something like that in the future, but perhaps in a bigger building. I think by the time I got halfway through and my finger was just like, I don't know what I did. I was doing the plasterboard I was doing some plastering in the new outbuilding, and I don't know if I just strained it or something, but literally I had no grip in my left hand. Everything I was trying to hold was just agony. And I think I got to the point where it's like, I just want to get it done for the workshop, which I did, and it worked really well. The children absolutely loved them. The next video is going to be something slightly different. That's going to be about hobbying with children. Whether you're starting this hobby as a parent, when your child wants to get involved and you've not really got any experience in the hobby, or whether you're a teacher or somebody working in a school who wants to start running a hobby club with the school, I'm just going to do a short video about kind of things that you'll need, where to get some good resources from, kind of lessons that I've learned doing this with kids, what works or what I found works, what doesn't work, what you kind of need to bear in mind with which minis to choose and things like that. So that'll just be a short video. I'm hoping to get that out next week, and then I'll do one about different painting things to do kind of in schools and or working with children, why kind of mini paints might be better than poster paints, that kind of thing. And again, that'll be a short one. And then I want to do a big board build. Now, that will depend on kind of whether I've got the space in the outbuilding to do it. I might try and do it in here, but I want to do a big pirate island board. So outside of this Mordheim style inspired ones, I want to put together a big pirate one, so it's just a self-contained board. I went to an insulation shop the other day to try and get some XPS foam, and surprise, surprise, because we're in England, they didn't have any. They'd never even heard of it. But they did give me a load of offcuts of Kingspan, loads and loads of offcuts. I've got a big bin bag full of that, and what I want to try and do is use some of that to build a big pirate tower in the middle of it. So we'll see how we get on with that. I might start making it, and that might take a while, and the video perhaps come out a bit later. But that's what I want to be working on. So for the next one, look out for the kind of hobbying with kids style thing. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody. I mean, like, you know, I know it's not huge numbers compared to everybody else, but at the minute I'm on about 360 subscribers or something, which for me is huge. I know it seems small numbers, but everybody's got to start somewhere. So if you are watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, just click that button. It's just motivation. It makes it seem worthwhile. But thank you for everybody who has. Thank you for everybody who's commenting. I love, you know, kind of replying and having a chat with you all. I hope you enjoyed this. Let's cut to the roll of it. Finished. See you later.